0.7% of GDP to overseas aid. And I'll turn first to Sir Alan.
I've been your MP for 22 years, and I've done anything to have the last 4 in which I was the Minister for International Development. I'm very proud that we, the Conservative Liberal Democrat Coalition, are the first prosperous Western government to commit to and deliver 0.7% of GDP on international development. And one of the first things I did as Minister was to go to Kathmandu. And they told me it was the greatest earthquake risk in a poor country in the world. And I spent the next 2 years developing the most comprehensive earthquake disaster plan that's ever been developed outside Japan and New Zealand and places like that, which is now being invoked on this very day in Kathmandu and thereabouts. And I reckon that what we have done with your money in that country alone has probably saved thousands and thousands of lives. And I'm very proud of that. And that's the sort of thing that our development money goes to, as well as trying to alleviate some of the worst poverty in the world in Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal itself, and things like that. So I say to those who criticise international development in our budget, you are wrong. If you get rid of it, you still have to give money to the IMF, the World Bank, and international vaccination and all that. So you're only arguing about whether you spend 2 billion more or less. That won't solve the health problem, it won't solve the defence problem, but it does mean that anyone from this United Kingdom can hold their head high across the entire world in which there's so much poverty.
The Green Party.
He is coming back.
The Green Party again would like to congratulate the Conservative Party actually for getting Britain to where we committed to be at the end of the 1970s, at the end of the Rutland Commission that said we would get to 0.7% GDP. It's 0.7 of a penny in the pound. The Green Party would like to go further and make that a whole penny in the pound. It's not a bigger step, it's not much more of a bigger step, but it would make a big difference. International aid is important. It's important to distribute the wealth that we have in this country to those who are far less fortunate than us, who face great challenges from our changing climate and are also facing severe difficulties through wars and other horrible things that are going on in this world of ours. What the Green Party would also like to say is we also need to do more in terms of being involved in peacekeeping efforts globally. We need to do more in terms of supporting democracy globally, but more important than that, we need to stop launching wars into foreign countries as well. We create lots of problems in this world by the military action that the Labour government have taken previously and also the Conservative government have taken as well. So there needs to be more than joined up thinking into the way we deliver aid, but yes, we want to commit to further aid spending as well.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to Dr. Moore. It is always possible to just agree with what the other person said, and just say that it would be all right just to agree with other candidates.
Just a minor correction to previous speakers. The Labour Party was the first party to commit to 0.7%, and it was also the first party to implement it under Gordon Brown and the last Labour government. But yes, I agree with the essentials of what's been said. Can I just add one thing, though? I think this is not just a humanitarian question. Yes, it is a humanitarian question, but it's more than that. I was involved in education initiative in Egypt and North Africa for a number of years, sponsored initially by the Labour government and the Conservative coalition that followed. And those initiatives were essentially about trying to ensure that countries in stable parts of the country, stable parts of the world, are able to provide an education system which is liberal, progressive, and focuses on bringing people together rather than encouraging social, cultural and religious division. And I think money spent on those initiatives actually in the end saves you thousands and millions of pounds. If you build stable communities through education in the Middle East, that means in the future communities will be able to come together and be able to understand each other better, and you'll avoid the necessity for wars that have been so destructive in recent years.
in your absence, we've had some written out of agreement from this, but I suspect this may change when I turn to Ms. Willington on this issue.
Thank you.
Overseas aid.
On the issue of overseas aid, UKIP is quite certain we wish to continue with a level of overseas aid which is directed towards need, but not on a blanket percentage basis. We know we give 0.7% of our gross national income abroad each year. Many other countries in Europe do not give anywhere near that amount, but there is still a need in Great Britain for help and assistance to be given here. UKIP wishes to support programmes of immunisation, programmes of education, but to direct that money in a more structured way through charities and NGOs rather than handing money in a blanket open cheque to governments. Now, I know there'll be some disagreement here, but we have members in UKIP who have seen aid packages and aid items for sale in markets in Dhaka. Now, why wasn't that being used by the people to whom it was directed? We know that every time money or aid moves abroad, a percentage is taken here and a percentage there. And eventually, the trickle of aid may be thin towards the end. Yes, Sir Rutland has improved it, but I still feel, and we feel in UKIP, that it's not controlled enough. So yes, we support aid, but in a controlled fashion for targeted, specific items. Thank you.
Mr. Gordon.
Yes, I think it's wonderful that we send all this money overseas to help people that are poor, especially when we have these disasters like the earthquake in Kathmandu. And yes, the way I look at it is that everybody is our neighbour. It doesn't matter where they come from, they are our neighbours. And I think it's just so wonderful that we can do this, that we can send this money out to bring them this aid that they need. And hopefully as well we can bring education to them. And I also think it's wonderful for these volunteers that go out and dig wells. So these people don't have to go for miles and miles to get water. And I think that is absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Last contribution from Mr. Hudson on this question, right on the audience.
It's not going to surprise you to know that this is one area where the coalition partners actually agreed 100% with each other, and I know that Alan particularly was a very prominent Minister of State at the Department of International Development alongside some Liberal Democrat colleagues. I don't know if, like other people on the panel, I've actually had experience during my service with the Royal Navy as working as a humanitarian aid monitor in Russia and in St Petersburg in 1992. And I'd like to pay particular tribute to the armed forces. You'll know in the discussion with the Nepal earthquake that some Gurkha engineers have already departed to go and help in the land of their home. And you know, it is tremendous that the British Armed Forces do get involved. So in answering the question, I would say I would like to see the use of the armed forces more in these situations, because certainly in my time we were given specialist skills to help with peacekeeping, but also to help in times of emergency. And the ships of the Royal Navy always had contingency plans for going to help, obviously, coastal nations, but also the troops. And I think it's really important that every time we talk about cutting back defence forces, and I guess there may be a question coming up a bit later about that they do play this incredibly important role. We do support the 7%, as do the other main parties, in terms of a share of GDP. And I think it's very important we continue to do that. But also, I do feel that we must make sure that we do target the aid. Great strides have been made in the last 5 years to make sure that the aid does get to those people who need it, and using a variety of different organisations like NGOs and charities. But I do make a plea, for whatever colour the government is next time, do not keep cutting the armed forces, because the more you get rid of personnel, the less people are available to actually go out and help these people in times of emergency.
turn to the audience, because the congregation